First, let's talk about the screens, because it's going to be two new phones, a little bigger than this and one even bigger than that. Do people want these larger screens? How well are they going to do?
Believe it or not, I mean, Apple's almost 2 years behind in terms of the leaders with respect to the form factor. In our opinion, this is going to be enough to drive a massive upgrade cycle of the existing installed base of iPhone users. So, you know, we kind of joke, you know, for the past year, this is going to be the motherlode of all Apple upgrade cycles. So
5.5 inches, though, that's big. I mean, that's phablet. It competes with the iPad.
It does. The iPad Mini.
Yeah, the iPad Mini, 7.9 inches, no question. But the largest smartphone that we've seen out there that we actually thought was ergonomically sensible was the LG G Flex. We saw that at Mobile World Congress this past year. It's 6 inches, but it curves. So it kind of curves across the mandible. It fits pretty nicely. We didn't think that was too big. I think the 5.5 inch will be fine. Now, it's going to be a question to see which of the Apple user community likes better. Is it going to be the 4.7 inch or the 5.5? Our best guess is it's probably going to be a 50-50 split right now.
Apple didn't seem to, you're already shopping. Apple didn't seem to get it right last time when their low-end phone sort of underperformed for them. What does Apple do? You know, one of the thing we don't talk about as much is how well Apple's managed its supply chain. What does this mean when they don't really know what's going to take off, and yet they're trying to launch this in a bigger way than ever before? They're taking greater risk than ever.
You bring up a huge point, Cory, because if you think about it, there's 300 million iPhone users out there, the existing installed base, of which we estimate about 100 million are not eligible to upgrade. So that means there's 200 million within the existing installed base that's ready to migrate to the larger form factor canvas. Typically what we've seen with the iPhone launches recently, it launches, that same quarter it peaks and then it comes down. Launches, peaks, and then it comes down. Now there's going to be so much wood behind that arrow. We think that this is going to be 60, 70, 80 million units for quite some time. So it's going to be a multi-quarter refresh cycle. So we think it's going to drive tremendous EPS expansion.
So what about other new features? What else can Apple do besides screen size to move the needle? There's been a lot of talk about extending battery life. Not much battery innovation over the last several decades. You know, I just read a story about U-Beam in the New York Times about Wi-Fi charging, you know, wirelessly, essentially. What about this kind of new technology?
Yeah, my iPhone 5 is less than 50% charged on the day so far.
Yes.
You know, it started the day at 100.
Me too.
Yeah. We got a long ways to go. So I think number one, obviously, is going to be the form factor. Larger screen. Number two will be better improved battery performance.
But it will need to be the larger screen. A better battery, although it'll be big, it'll be physically bigger battery.
It'll be thinner.
It a lot more power.
Yeah, thinner, but we have a greater surface area, so we can cram more batteries in there. You crack open this new iPhone 6, it's going to be all battery. So
well, that's the case now. When you break these phones open, it in fact is almost all the unit inside is a battery.
Yeah, we're going to have expanded surface area, so the battery life will increase pretty dramatically in our view. Then finally, number three is just going to be the updated operating system. It'll be iOS 8. And so, you know, frankly, we don't see a tremendous amount of innovation on the actual device. Regardless, it's going to be selling like hotcakes.
It's going to sell anyway, but I guess, you know, you wonder what's it going to take to get something more.
Well, I know.
You know, we've talked about NFC and just other things like that move the needle.
And Samsung's throwing all kinds of junk into their phone, right? They've got a barometer in their phone. They've got the waterproof stuff. Do you expect Apple to respond to some of that and throw in some chips and things with new possibilities?
Think about it this way. The cell phone market globally is a 2 billion unit market. Now, smartphones for the first time ever are over 50%. So we're over 1 billion units. So this is largely a mature market. Think about PCs. Other than the form factor over the past 5 or 10 years, has much really changed? Not that much. You know, we tried this little netbook thing. Obviously, that didn't work. The fundamental form factor of a PC is not really evolving. We feel smartphones have reached a similar point of maturation.
So Eddie Q, Apple executive, says it's the most exciting product line he's seen in 25 years at Apple coming up. Tim Cook agrees with him. What else could there be? Will an iWatch come out this fall? Is there something more? Is it just the new phones?
I think you know, the commentary from the senior management team obviously is trying to rally not only the troops internally, but also the public as well.
Customer base.
Yeah, I think. So
you don't believe him?
I mean, how could a big iPhone be more exciting than the original iPhone?
At the end of the day, nothing is going to move the needle from an Apple perspective, with the exception of new updated iPhones. I mean, if you think about it, you know, Apple ecosystem, now they're going to generate over $200 billion of revenue next year, ship over 200 million phones. So even if the iWatch is phenomenally successful, grand slam success, it's not going to move the needle from a financial perspective, in our opinion.
You know, I went back and looked at the revenue numbers for the iPad in its first year, and the iPad was an incredible success, the likes of which technology has probably never seen, even compared to the phone or the iPod or anything. If they were to launch the iPad with the same success that they had in the first year this year to a much bigger Apple, it'd be less than 5% of revenues.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
It's just they couldn't do anything to match the success they've had in a reasonable way.
When you have sweetheart carrier subsidy deals, more than 2x industry average, coupled with incremental resale of NAND flash, in some cases up to 85% excess gross margins, this is on the iPhone. It's so hard to compete with anything else. And considering that global cell phone market is a 2 billion unit market opportunity, you just can't get anything else to move the needle for the company.
Let me posit a threat to Apple and see what you think. So T-Mobile's out there with this strategy of untying the user to the contract, meaning that the user is actually paying full cost of the phone. You've got smartphones that have less features than, say, the Samsung Galaxy or the iPhone, but are much lower cost. Does that start to eat away at the business where Apple and Samsung have dominated sort of, most of the business?
Well, I think new pay schemes are going to be a thing of the future, no question. But at the end of the day, a smartphone costs $600, $700 without a contract. Well, if you sign a 2-year contract, that's going to be $2,500. So, there's a little chunk of the price that is actually the phone. The real cost to the end customer is obviously the subscription service. And so I don't expect much change to the overall ASPs of the high-end segment of the smartphone market, where Apple competes. The general smartphone industry is about a $335 ASP over a billion units. So Apple plays at a category of twice that.